My name is Dennis McGary.
Could you spell it, your last name?
MC, capital Gary.
And what is your birthday?
9/23/42.
42, so that makes you
77.
77-year-old man look like that? I cannot believe. Is it the air of Cody or what makes you so young?
Well, I don't know what makes me so young. Just
Come on, you share the secret with us.
no, it's just it must be Wyoming.
Wow. Where were you born? Right here?
Right here.
Cody, Wyoming.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, on the way from South Dakota to here, I was mesmerized by the Shell, what is it?
Shell Canyon.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a beautiful canyon.
it's a big part of Bighorn National Forestry, right?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, you're living in a beautiful place.
Yeah. An hour in any direction from here, and you're in the most fantastic country in the world.
I want to come back.
Come back. We'll take you out.
So tell me about your family background when you were growing up here.
I have cousins that are in Hyattville, Wyoming, that came in the early 1800s, I'm sorry. They came in the early 1800s and homesteaded in Hyattville, Wyoming. And my dad's mother, my grandmother, she came to Wyoming in 1895, and she was 16 years old to teach school.
Oh.
And she came here to teach school.
What did she teach? Everything,
She
right?
taught, yeah, it was a one-room schoolhouse, and from grades to 1 to whatever, and she taught it all.
Uh-huh.
And when she started teaching school, she was 16.
16 years
16.
old? Wow. That's the news.
Yeah, her and a girlfriend, they went to, I think they called it ladies' school.
Uh-huh.
It was just, and they went together, her and her friend, and the friend was a little bit older than she was, but they went both with school, and so when they had an interview, my grandmother won the interview, and the other girl didn't get to come. So we've been out here since that long.
Huh. And how many siblings did you have at the time?
When my grandma and grandpa were married, and when they had 15 children.
15.
15.
Okay. And so when did you graduate high school here?
1962.
1962. What high school was it?
Cody High School.
Cody High School.
Yep. Still is.
Still is. So in your school, did you learn about Korea?
In our school, when I graduated from my school, our graduation class was in the top 10 schools in the United States.
You mean Cody High School?
Cody High School.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
Wow.
We had some fantastic teachers, and we had some you couldn't get along with.
Wow.
But they all did a good job.
So, did you learn anything about Korea?
Well, at that time of my life, about the only thing I really cared about was my dad's ranch and being outdoors. So a lot of the school just kind of slipped by enough, so I graduated. But
So you were pretty much involved in your dad's ranch?
yeah, we had a big ranch up towards the mountains.
You still have?
No, it's been gone a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
So, but for example, in 1961 and 60, when you were in high school, in your world history or U.S. history book, did that cover Korean War and Korea?
Yeah, it did.
Uh-huh. But you were not very interested in it?
Well, no. What I was interested in was automotive classes, FFA, technical engineering, and stuff like that.
So that you can run the ranch?
Yep.
Uh-huh. So you wanted to be a cowboy?
Well, I was already a cowboy.
So you are the young Buffalo Bill?
Yeah, well, not on the Buffalo Bill. But
So After you graduated, what did you do?
Most of the time when I was in school, all the other kids would get out of school in the summer and do different things, baseball and that stuff. When I got out of school in the summer, I worked on the ranch. There was not much summer.
So what kind of work are you talking about in the ranch? Give me the details. What did you do?
Details? Our ranch, my dad's ranch, was about 800 acres.
Wow.
And we had some different lease. I don't know how much lease we had at that time. But we had 100 head of dairy cows. We milked morning and night.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister had 100 head of sheep. And my dad had about 75 or 80 steers, feeder steers. And when we first got the ranch, we did everything with horses. We put up hay and everything with horses.
A lot of laboring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was 7 years old, my first job was leading the big workhorse that kicked the hay up onto the stack.
Did your father pay you well?
I didn't. Not a dime.
Not a dime?
Not a dime.
Oh my goodness.
Not a dime.
Oh, that's not fair.
Oh, but you shouldn't have seen the way I ate.
Okay, so your father feeds you.
Oh yeah.
And you provide the labor for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He taught me how to drive a pickup when I was 7.
That's amazing. When did you join the military then?
Let's see, 60. I was working with my dad construction in 62 when I graduated, and I got a letter from the military said I was going to be drafted.
When?
Well, they didn't say. Well, I got the letter in the first of 63.
63.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you do?
Well, of course, they sent me information, and I had to get on a bus, and I had to go to Butte, Montana, to go through the induction center. And I went through all that and everything, and when I got through, I went over and asked them, I said, when do you think that you guys will send a letter for me to be drafted? And he said, I have no idea. I said, well, weeks, months, years? He said, I have no idea. I said, what am I supposed to tell my employer when I get back? That I might be gone. And he said, well, that's the way it works. So I came home and talked to my dad and my mom, and a couple of weeks later I joined the military.
Couple weeks later?
Yep.
Join?
Yep.
So you were not drafted?
No.
Why?
Because I could get a school.
What school?
In diesel engineering.
Oh, so you joined the military to get into the engineering school.
Yep.
So you gave up your dream job, which is ranching.
Ranching.
Without being paid.
Well, the military didn't pay me much either, so.
But at least they paid you, right? Yeah, I want to talk about that too. So you joined it, and where did you go to the basic military training?
Fort Ord, California.
Fort
Ord.
ORG, California. And how was it, the basic military training? Easy?
Well, I don't know. When you grow up on a farm, ranch, things come pretty easy physically, so I didn't have much trouble.
Yeah, you could be an instructor there.
Well, when you're Irish and you have a bad temper, it's really tough to.
Oh, yeah, so you are Irish or ethnic origin?
Yeah, we're Irish.
Yeah. So Irish love to drink and dance and singing, right?
No drinking, just a bad temper.
Just like a Korean. Yeah. So, how long was it, the basic military training?
Oh, 8 weeks. What's it, 8?
9 weeks.
9 weeks, yeah.
Don't cheat.
Well, when I was in it, I just did the job, and, I didn't pay any attention.
And by the time, did you ever think that you would go to Korea?
Never.
So then, what were you thinking? Just going to the engineering school?
Just going to the engineering school and then doing whatever they told me to do.
Mm-hmm. So what happened after that?
Well, after
Basic.
basic training, I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia.
Fort
Belvoir, Virginia.
B-E-L
Virginia?
B-E-L.
Yeah, Belvoir. B-E-L-V-E-L. I don't know. Belvoir? Yeah.
Belvoir, okay.
Yeah, Belvoir.
Virginia.
Yeah.
And then what did you do there?
That was with a school.
What school?
Engineering. Army engineers.
So you accomplished your dream.
Yep.
What did you learn there?
When I graduated from school, the military gives you a driver's license for everything. When I graduated from school, I had a driver's license to run a generator or run a tank.
Tank.
Yeah.
Those are two radically different things. And so, were you able to really drive the tank?
They didn't have any, but I had a lot of bulldozers and stuff like that.
Yes.
The tanks were at another post.
So actually, you were not trained to actually drive the tank,
No.
but you had a license.
Yep.
Okay, that works good. So somehow, how did you get into Korea?
In 1960, well, it was in 65. I was back there in 64 and 65. And my platoon sergeant.
What do you mean? You retired from army?
No. This is 1965.
Okay, in the engineering school and so on. Yes.
I was in school. And my platoon sergeant was his wife and my soon-to-be wife worked together in the payroll part of the Marine Corps. So, well, when we had a party one night, and the platoon sergeant's wife introduced me to the girl I would marry.
What's her name?
Judith.
Judith. And?
I said I had to go all the way from Wyoming to Washington, D.C. to Vermont to find her.
Mm-hmm.
And we were married in 65.
65.
Yeah.
Then, did you go to Korea or what?
No. The school that was there, one of the main warrant officer, W4, was in charge of the school. And they had been mustered from France to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, a year before I got there.
Yes.
So everything they were doing was in preparation to build up their company and go back to France. So that's what we were working for, was to go back to France. Well, when I graduated from school, we had everything put together, and we had stripped down all of our trucks and jeeps and everything and loaded them with all of our supplies, ready to go back to France. Well, one morning, a couple weeks later, we came in, and everything we had was gone.
What happened?
The military came in and confiscated all of our equipment because they had a military outbreak in one of the islands. I don't know which one it was, but they took all of our equipment. So our French trip was off.
So sorry. I am so sorry to hear that. Instead, you were stuck with Korea.
Yeah. Well, then we didn't know where we was going. And one morning I came in, and they had us all in line, and they said, "Gentlemen, these are your new orders." And they started handing out. And when I looked down at mine, it said Vietnam.
Huh?
And he said, "Go home and pack your duffel bag. You're leaving in the morning."
Yeah.
So I went home and told my wife what was going on, and I packed my duffel bag. And the next morning I went back, and I got in the line, and they called 10 of us out.
What?
They called 10 people out of this formation. And he said, and they handed me new orders. He said, "These are your new orders." And I looked down and it said, "South Korea."
What a story. So you actually wanted to go to France, right?
Yep.
You were very excited.
Yes. Oh,
Why?
Because my wife could go with me.
Oh. And it's not because of Paris in France, but because your wife?
It's because my wife.
I mean, obviously Paris is much better than Seoul, Korea, right?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, at that time, I didn't know much about Korea.
You didn't know.
No.
Did you know where Korea was?
Oh yeah, I knew where it was at.
Okay.
And I knew all the things. My wife's brother went through the whole Korean War.
Oh,
He was there from 50 to 53.
Judith's brother.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you hear from him about the Korean War?
He doesn't talk much about it.
See, that is the problem of Korean War veterans.
Yeah.
And
He just talked enough to say that it was hell on earth when he was there.
And from France, you were assigned to go to Vietnam. Were you excited?
Well, no, I wasn't excited about going to Vietnam.
Why not?
Well, it's starting to be in the middle of the conflict.
Okay, was in the war, so that you couldn't carry with your wife.
Yeah, I couldn't go. I couldn't take her to Vietnam, but
No wife in the war.
no.
And then from Vietnam, your job assignment changed again.
I never did have to go to Vietnam. I just changed my orders.
Exactly.
That morning.
When was it? Still 1965?
65. Yeah.
When was it? What month?
Oh, when did we end? May? Yeah, May.
Where did it happen that you are one of 10 and you are reassigned to Korea?
And in our company, we had the school company.
Where?
In Fort Belvoir, Virginia. We were still at the school company.
Uh-huh.
Because that's where we were supposed to leave the school company and go to France.
Uh-huh. So when you realized that you were sent to Korea, what were you thinking?
They gave us, I forget what it was, 10 or 15 days. I got on the plane, I came to Wyoming and spent some time with my family. Got on a plane and flew to California.
Mm-hmm. And then, where were you? You were married in Virginia, right?
I was married in Vermont.
Vermont, but your wife was in...
She worked for the Pentagon payroll in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. So when did you leave for Korea from where?
Let's see. Yeah, Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, it was, I don't know what the month was. I think Judy, we got married in February, and I think it was February, March, April, May. So it was probably the 1st of May when I got my orders.
So you flew, right?
Yeah, I flew from D.C. to Wyoming, to Billings, Montana, and then my folks came and picked me up, and then I flew out of Billings, Montana to Oakland, California.
From California to Korea directly?
No. I flew from to Oakland, California, and they took me down to the ocean and put me on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
I got on the ship and spent, what was it, 17 days on the ship.
And where did you land?
In Incheon, South Korea.
When did you arrive?
Well, 13 days after, what?
17, probably in the middle of May.
Yeah, I think it was in the middle of May, yeah. When you're on a boat like that, and on the boat was 3,500 GIs. There was 1,500 people that was going to be in Korea, and there was 700 ship crew on the ship, and it was only built for 1,000 people.
So packed like a sardine.
Yep.
So you enjoy throwing up and smelling to each other's?
99% of the time I was on deck.
Okay. So, before we talk about Korea, now you are sitting with one of your best friends together.
We didn't know each other yet.
But you met him there.
Yes.
When did you meet? Where and how did you meet?
When the ship pulled into Korea, the tide was out. It was out 7 miles. So they put us on landing craft and took us in.
You didn't know Jack Martin in the United States. You didn't meet him in Oakland, California, or basic training, or in Belvoir.
No.
Okay, Go on.
So, well, on the ship, when we got on the ship, they went in alphabetical order. Well, when we went up the gangplank, the guy was up there counting them, and
You
when
mean
they,
in Incheon?
in Oakland, California.
Oh, yeah.
When we got on the ship, we got up the one at the gangplank, and when they started alphabetical order, and when they got to M's, they sent the M's a different direction. And all the people that went on before us pulled KP for 17 days. The guys from M to Z didn't pull anything. We just sat on our butts.
Are you telling me the real, genuine story, or
Yes, I am.
you are crafting up last night?
No, well, the guys that were from M to Z must have worn out 1,000 decks of cards.
So here again, the destiny of last name M, as
Yep.
in Mary, or Martin, or
McGary.
McGary, that made you friends.
Well, we never seen anybody on the boat. We never seen anybody.
And so
So when we got off the ship and on the landing crafts,
so you didn't know him.
Nope.
You were in the same ship, right?
yep, no,
But-
somewhere there's 3,500 guys you don't know.
No, you can say 1,500. 1,500 soldiers who were assigned to Korea.
No, there was
You
no-
didn't know each other yet.
No, there was 3,200 GIs
Yep.
and 1,500 other people.
Yep.
We didn't know each other. We got on the landing craft and we got down to the beach, and they had a real long thing coming out from above on the beach, and it was a set of rollers. There must have been, what do we say, probably 20 sets, Jack?
A lot of them.
A lot of them. So we carried our duffel bag down, they put it on the roller, and we pushed it probably 150 yards up. And then when we got to there, it was a railroad track and a station. And when we started getting up there, there was a whole bunch of sergeants standing there, and they all had a little piece of colored yarn in their hand. And as we come up, and they checked our names, they put a red one in this guy, a blue one in that one, a green one in that one, a yellow in that guy, and sent us all these directions. So all of us went down, whoever had the little red one, I think I had a red one, I'm not sure.
I don't remember that part.
But we all went down this way. And we stood there for a while, and then they said, okay, this bunch, you get on the train. And this was an old steam locomotive.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got on the train, they handed us a little paper bag full of food. So I went down the aisle, and there was a guy sitting there. The seats were like this, facing each other. So I went down, and there was a lone guy there, and I said, can I sit with you? And he said, sure. So we sat there and visited for a little bit.
And that is the guy, Jack Martin.
That's the guy, Jack Martin.
So that should be around middle of May or end of May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember him? How was it? Was he smelly or was he handsome?
Let me, I don't want to offend you, but when we're sitting there, and the train started, of course we're supposed to eat our lunch. Well, there was, outside the windows was big 55-gallon drums.
Yeah.
And after we ate our lunch, we were supposed to throw the bags into the garbage cans. Well, when we finished our lunches and threw the bags in the garbage can, there was about 50 little Korean boys and girls that dove into those barrels after those empty bags.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Jack and I's first impression of Korea. The children were starving to death.
So it was pretty negative, right?
It was, yeah, unbelievable. Him and I were sitting there, and all of a sudden there was a little, what did you say, probably 4 or 5?
Well, he wasn't very old. Not very big.
Came crawling under all the seats, through our legs, and went on down to the end of the car, picking up scraps off the floor of the train. And he was still on it when the train took off, so we have no idea where he got off. He was still on the train. He just disappeared.
You're talking about small Korean child under the seat
Yep.
of the train
in the train.
and looking for anything to eat.
Yes. When we,
And that was 1965.
yes.
In Korea, in 1962, we have launched a 5-year economic development plan by the Park Chung-hee, President Park Chung-hee. And so we were developing and changing Korean nation, but it was still very early phase. And that how much the situation was there.
Farther north you got, the worse it was.
Yeah, just please, you look at me and please, you look at him, please. Jack, you look at me. Excellent, thank you. This is going to be edited, by the way. So
We're sitting there, and we started out of Korea. The train started out. We didn't know where it was going. We're just on the train and we're going. Well, him and I are talking, visiting, and we're going down this thing, and there's a woven or not, I don't know whether woven wire fence on both sides of the train track, probably 7 or 8 feet tall. And we were visiting, and all of a sudden he looked at me and I looked at him, and I said, "What's that terrible smell?" I grabbed my handkerchief out and put it on my face, and we finally looked out the window. Well, there was dried dead fish on those wires for blocks and blocks and blocks, hanging on that fence, drying. So that was one of the things when we think, oh my goodness, that we're going to have to put up with this for 13 months?
yeah. You've been putting up with the shit of bisons and cows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still dry those fishes, and it's one of the best menu in Korean dishes. And I think you will like it if it is cooked properly, okay? But anyway, so from there, where did you go?
Well, we were visiting there, and Jack's the smoker and I'm not.
Oh,
So he reached in his pocket and got a package of cigarettes out and took one, and he handed me one. I said, "No, I don't smoke.
why you didn't smoke?
Never have.
I mean, you didn't like it?
No."
You didn't. How about your father?
My father and my mother smoked. And
That's
my sister
why.
smoked, but I never did.
Okay, that's why you don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jack said, he said, "Well, it's no good." He says, "I haven't got anything to light it with." So I reached in my pocket and I handed him my lighter. And he said, "Well, why do you have a lighter in your pocket when you don't smoke?" And I said, "For people like you."
So, where did you go? I mean, where was your last destination?
What?
Camp Rice,
What?
Camp Rice.
Camp Rice, 2.5 miles from the DMZ in the north.
Camp Rice?
Rice.
R-I-C-E.
Yeah.
And that was from 2 miles from DMZ.
Yeah.
And what was your unit at the time?
What is that one, Jack?
The 702nd Maintenance Battalion,
707
702
Maintenance.
Maintenance Battalion,
Uh-huh.
2nd Infantry Division.
2nd Infantry Division. And yes, thank you.
That's the base for it.
What was your specialty?
My specialty was I was a diesel engineer.
What?
A diesel engineer.
Diesel.
I was an Army engineer is what I was, and a diesel engineer. That's what I went to school for. So I was with Jack and I. Well, with Jack and I were going there to be mechanics. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, he told me about his love of automotives and so on.
He was a fuel and electric man. That's what his part was.
Mm-hmm. So you become a buddy from there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Did you like him?
Well, it took me a while to get used to it.
What was your rank at the time?
At the time, I was a PFC.
PFC. Okay. Do you remember how much were you paid in the beginning?
60.
First check I got was $62
Yeah, $62.
a month.
with the $62, what were you able to do at the time?
Well, about anything I wanted to do, but most of the mail I mostly kept about $5 or $6 or $7, and the rest of it I sent home to my wife.
And what did your wife did with that money?
I have no idea.
What do you mean? Didn't you find out any savings after you returned from Korea?
You'll probably laugh at me, but when we got married and got together and got married, one of the things she asked me was if I would go to church with her on Sundays. And I said yes. And I said, if you'll do all the finances for our family. And she said yes. So she still does the finances. I don't.
Mm-hmm. That's why you're poor. Okay, tell me about the routines of your duties in Camp Rice as a diesel engineer. What time you wake up? What did you do? Where you sleep? What did you eat? What did you do after the work?
Okay, you have to understand, when we got to Camp Rice, they dumped us out of the trucks and they had us all on the parade ground in formation. And they went through and they called everybody's name and they introduced everybody, and the captain and the sergeant and the lieutenants. And then, you're never supposed to volunteer for anything. Never volunteer.
But you did.
So they asked all these questions, and pretty soon the first sergeant says, "Does anybody type?" Nobody answered. Finally I said, "First sergeant, I do." He says, "You're the shop clerk."
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 13 months behind a typewriter and a desk. Never turned a wrench.
So you didn't work on diesel?
Nothing. All that, several hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on my school, and I never turned a wrench.
What about Jack? What did Jack do?
Well, you'd have to have a censored book to tell all the stuff that Jack did.
So I'm going to grill him in Yellowstone, okay? So you got to come to Yellowstone. Promise me? Okay. How was life there?
Well, the first thing I had to get used to was when the bugs and the crickets were this long on the side of our barracks. It was a little different thing that I never seen. The barracks were old metal Quonset huts with a stove on each end and no insulation. They had probably 20 regular bunks, and then a cubicle for the platoon sergeant, and a stove at each end. Well, I got a bunk on this end, and Jack happened to be across from me.
Oh, you're in the same concept.
Same Quonset hut.
Oh my God. You
Sometimes
guys never be
Sometimes
separated.
our bunks were beside each other, sometimes they were across.
Yeah.
We moved around trying to stay warm.
Don't mention that.
We had been there, a couple weeks, and it started to rain. And it rained. Well, our barracks was sitting on a little hill. Well, the water came in this door and run down, and it tried to run out that door, but the Quonset hut was set in a little angle, so it all went underneath my bed. About 2.5 foot of water under my bed.
Were there any fish?
No, I couldn't find any fish. So I went over to the shop and I got a long wrecking bar and I rammed holes through the side of my hooch so the water would run out. So that's what it was for 13 months. So I had holes in there so the water would run out.
Now, right now, Korea, a lot of rain, so that most of the part is submerged in now, right now.
Right now, yeah.
Right now. So basically, it wasn't that hard, right?
No.
Mm-hmm. But what about the situation in the DMZ? There were any skirmish or any heightened?
There was different. They would call us out probably once a month as something would happen on the museum, and they would call us into the field. That would happen probably once a month. A couple times that we had to stay for 2 or 3 days. Somebody actually came across and caused some trouble and then went back over.
Mm-hmm.
So, but And we were close enough to the ZMD that every night we could hear the loudspeakers with the propaganda. It would just blast all night long.
But there were no real battle,
No,
no skirmish.
no. There was, what was that? That was towards just before we went home when they came across again, wasn't it, Jack? Yeah.
In 1968, North Korea abducted USS Pueblo.
Yes.
And 1969, North Korea shot down EC-121, the spy airplane. And then in 1976, there was a popular accident so that the American officers and soldiers were axed by the North Koreans in the DMZ. Other than that, there were not much heightened, right?
No.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How was the situation? Did you feel threatened by the North Koreans at the time?
No.
Not really.
No.
Okay. Were there any Korean soldiers or Korean people working with you?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about it. What?
We had, well, most of the barracks had a Korean civilian that took care of our barracks.
Mm-hmm.
Took care of my clothes, my shoes, everything for me. And then we had Katusas, and then we had rock soldiers, both on the post. And we got along fine.
Katusa means a Korean augmentation to U.S. Army, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So they were able to speak some English.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them a whole lot better English than I could speak Korean.
Yeah, right.
Jack the one that Korean,
Yeah, he knows.
yeah.
So after the work, were you able to go out of the camp?
Oh, yes. Yep.
What did you do?
Well, there were villages and nightclubs, and I spent a lot of time at the military. It had a big
Military prison?
no, yeah.
Yeah, we kept him locked up.
And it was a military where they had a gym and a theater and recreation center and a cafe and a place you could buy groceries and stuff like that.
Is that inside of the camp or outside
No,
of
this was in a different place, another camp,
another camp?
another camp.
Mm-hmm.
And we would either go with one of the guys that was going that way in a military vehicle, or we would catch a Korean cab.
Mm-hmm. Have you been to Seoul?
When I was there, I took there was five of the buddies. Jack didn't go; he was busy. But there was 5 of us that went to Seoul on a religious thing. We went to the big church and stuff down there, and they showed us around in Seoul, but that was when I went to Seoul. And another time I had liberty, and there was 3 of us. I didn't realize it, but there's in the northeastern part of Korea, there's a big mountain enough that you can ski on.
Yeah.
And I'm a skier.
Oh.
So we had a trip up there for 3 or 4 days. Well, the rain came and melted the snow. So we were in Seoul for a few days, then we went back because the snow was melted. We couldn't go skiing.
That must be Yongpyeong, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And how was Seoul at the time? It was still 1965, right? How was Seoul?
Seoul there was parts of it that the military wouldn't let us go down. It was still pretty devastated. Lots of buildings that weren't, they were really bad shape.
How about people?
The people, we just mingled with them. We just went with them.
But how do they look? Do they look poor, or do they looking for still anything to eat or something?
Well, Seoul was a little better. When up north, it was bad.
So did you share your food with other people, or did you give out something, chocolate,
Well,
gums?
they didn't. In Seoul, nobody ever asked for food.
Okay.
We were in a small group, and they would take us here and they would take us there. So.
Mm-hmm. And what about, have you been back to Korea since then?
No.
Do you know what's going on in Korean economy and Korean democracy?
Korea is one of the most fantastic economies in the world, South Korea.
Do you know the rank of Korean economy now in the world?
If I think Jack said was it like in 10th or 11th?
Yeah, 11th.
Yeah. I thought it was more. I thought I was placing it about 5th.
5th?
Yeah.
Oh, you kidding me. You know,
I had heard 8th, but I saw in your book, I read the first couple of pages, and you said 10th in the book, but you say 11 now.
Well, South Korea is. I've done some research on it and watched,
tell me about it.
and it's.
What do you know?
I think it's probably one of the most industrialized small countries in the world, and it has the medical facilities it has is unbelievable. They're only one of the few countries I know of that produce artificial ears, noses, and eyes stuff for people.
Plastic surgery, you
Yeah.
come to Korea. We can fix your face, okay?
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Make him funny again,
Do you want to look like a whom? Just kidding. But so you pretty know how much has been
Oh
advanced.
yes, yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, compared to
Well,
1965 and now.
I don't. You know, all the wars and stuff. The United States is, as far as I'm concerned, has rebuilt the whole entire world. First World War, the Second World War, all that stuff. We've poured more money into all the rest of the world and all the
Marshall
world
Plan
put together.
Yeah, Marshall Plan for Europe.
Well, South Korea is one of the countries that we helped give money to that actually did something with it.
Right. When did you leave Korea?
Well, it was gone
June of 66.
66, yeah, June of 66.
And when you left Korea in June of 1966, did you think that Korea would become like this today?
No.
Why not?
Well, because it was so devastated that I didn't know whether it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
When we were there, we would be sent. Jack was one of them that was sent out. We did some work for some orphanage, and Jack said that we got to go get some trees to help build a fence. Well, there was no trees left in Korea, so they took him up on a little hillside, and the trees they got were about this big around and 4 foot tall. That's not a tree.
But now Korea is one of the most successful reforestation country in the world.
Yeah.
So if you go back, Camp Rice, I don't know, I don't think it's still existing, but you will see full of big trees like Wyoming in Bighorn National Forestry, and it's all covered.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. But my question is, still in world history textbook in the United States and all other countries that participated in the Korean War don't talk much about Korea.
No.
Korean War. Why?
I have no idea.
So what should we do?
Well, I'll tell you what, right now the American people are deserting history.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a decent high school teacher that still teaches a decent history class, you're going to find a 1 in a million.
So that's why we are doing this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you know of any history teacher wants to work with my foundation, please let me know, okay? While you were in Korea, were you able to write letters to your wife?
Yes.
What did you write?
I just would write of what I was doing, what the country was like, what the people were like, what Jack and I were doing.
Do you still keep the letter?
I don't know what she did with them. She might still have them.
Oh, so first job that you need to do after this interview is to ask your wife. And if you have, would you be willing to share with us so that we can scan it, except those portion which is X-rated, so that they can tell Korea in 1965 and how you thought about Korea. I mean, please think about it, okay?
Well, it was different. It was. They would. Everybody was poor. All the Koreans were poor. I don't expect this. I don't even know whether they had any money in Seoul or Incheon. But everybody was so, and they collected everything. And they would come on our post and they would leave with a bicycle with 200 beer cans fastened to the back of a bicycle and go down the street.
And they built a house with it.
Well, I don't know what they built with it, but they did a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah.
The next bicycle came by would have a 200-pound pig on the back, and he would be pedaling down the road with a 200-pound hog on the back of his bicycle.
That's how it used to be in Korea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But now Korea is offering aid to other poor countries, developing countries. So, big part of your Korean mission was spending time with Jack, right? Any episode that you want to share with me about Jack?
Oh, that would have to be on a whole other different book.
Yeah. Give me some, please.
He was the dad of the bunch. We were the kids.
When I went in, I was 24 years old. Jack was 17.
Oh, okay. So he was kid and you were adult.
Well, I guess you could call me an adult. 24 years old.
Yeah, and
Jack was a farmer and I was a rancher, so we hit it off there. We knew what was going on. Jack was a hunter and I was a hunter. So that's a lot of our conversations about those things. But I was married, had been married only a few months, so all the single guys, they went to the village.
mm-hmm.
I stayed at the post and went to the rec center or read or.
Is he telling the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good boy.
Okay.
But the guys were always hollering at me to come, so I went down and I rented a little village house. And I put beer and pretzels and stuff in it. And I would go down with the guys and I would spend time there. And they would go out to the bar and whatever. So, but that was where I go. Most of the time I was on the post at the rec center or whatever.
So now you are sitting, Jack's hometown is not Cody, okay?
No,
it wasn't.
Jack was Wisconsin.
I know.
Yeah.
He's from Wisconsin, and now he's sitting here, he's living here. What happened? How did it happen?
Well, the more we was there, the better friends we got to be. He got to be in a little bit of a partier, and well, when you
I'm going to tell Diane about it, okay?
when you stay out more than curfew, and you come trying to get through the concertina wire at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
well, you have to have somebody inside to help you from the outside in.
Okay, so you are accomplice. And
Before he left the post, he would find out what guard station I was on.
so you let him in.
I let him in.
Yeah, not being caught.
No,
Okay.
don't even get him caught.
How
No.
much did you charge him for that?
Nothing.
Was free?
Free. It was free.
Okay, so you have to buy lunch today for him.
Yeah.
So after you come back, how did it happen that Jack's still with you?
Well, when we came back on the plane. So we came back and.
You came back together in the
He
same
was-
plane?
I was 2 weeks ahead of you.
Just a day or two.
Day or two, something, on the airplane, and of course I flew. He flew to Wisconsin, right? You went to Wisconsin, and I flew to Wyoming, and was going to go back to Vermont, and find my wife so I could go to my next post.
Yeah.
Well, when I got here and walked off the airplane, my wife was in the terminal waiting for me in Billings, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
My folks had sent her an airplane ticket and brought her out for me.
Yeah. So
we stayed here we were here for a couple weeks, and then we drove from Wyoming to Vermont and picked up some of her stuff, and then we drove from Vermont to Fort Hood, Texas.
mm-hmm.
And during that time, Jack had been sent to Fort Hood, Texas too. When Judy and I got there, we got housing off post, and I would come in every morning, and Jack of course was in the barracks. Well, when I finally found out that Jack was there, then he would come down to the house and have supper or whatever with us,
Mm-hmm.
off post.
Mm-hmm. And then?
Then we spent our time in Fort Hood, Texas.
And we got discharged from there.
What time? When was it?
Well, he got out before I did.
I got out in '67.
Yeah, I got out in May of '67.
Okay. And then?
But when we were all friends, Jack and I would sit and visit and talk, and I told him, he would tell me, in Wisconsin, when hunting season opens, there is like 300,000 people in the woods the first day. And I told him, and he said, you have to duck behind a lot of trees. So I said, well, if you come to Wyoming, I'll take you to the spots where there's no people at all. And he said, that sounds good. So
He came to Wyoming.
came to Wyoming.
When was it?
Well, that was
'68, first time I came.
yeah, first he came by himself in '68 to visit.
Mm-hmm.
His mom got me a job. I worked in the oil fields for a while.
And then how did he meet his wife?
Well, how long did you work here, Jack?
I only worked here a month or two.
Month or two,
And
yeah.
then I went back to Wisconsin, and then I met her. And then we came out here on our honeymoon because I wanted her to meet Dennis and Judy,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted her to see this place because I wanted to come back. And so we came on our honeymoon and went through Yellowstone and stuff. And she liked it, so we made plans and we moved out here.
Excellent. So let me wrap this interview by asking you, you didn't know much about Korea. Now you are the Korea defense veteran.
Yes.
How can you link this dot? And what is Korea to you? And how was your Korean service? Tell me, what is Korea to you? How do you put it into perspective?
Well, I don't know how to put it, but it's from all the stuff I've been through and the different things I've done. South Korea is probably one of the countries that is actually a friend to the United States. So I can't put it any different than that.
You're not talking because I'm here.
Nope.
So
There's the Korean people have done, South Korean people have done, every time Jack and I turn around, they're doing something, they're sending us something, they're visiting with us, they're talking to us. They sent an ambassador to us and they gave us a medal.
yep.
And we weren't even in the hot shot. We were there afterwards.
Mm-hmm. But still, Korea defense veterans, their contribution need to be re-examined because, as you know, Korean War never finished. Okay,
Never.
It's never been replaced by the peace treaty.
Nope.
And the main enemy was between North and South, but at the same time, it was between China and the U.S. And that game never ended.
No.
Right now.
Right.
But at that time, President,
60.
well, during 53, 53.
Truman.
If I'd had my way, I'd have hit him in the head with a hammer.
Why?
Because MacArthur was ready to go into China and finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't let him.
So you think that we should have fought against China?
I think that he should have gave MacArthur a hydrogen bomb and fixed the Chinese people.
Uh-huh.
That might be cruelty,
Yeah.
but it would have stopped a lot of stuff
Yeah.
happening.
So still there are trade conflict and there are two U.S. aircraft carrier in South China Sea. U.S. is trying to control China. China is trying to challenge the hegemony of the United States. And it's a natural extension of the Korean War right now.
It is.
That's how important the Korean War is now and will be, for the regional peace and
South Korea has some of the best military pilots in the world.
Pilot?
Pilots.
Yeah.
Aircraft. Fighter pilots.
Yeah. My father was Air Force. He was the Phantom F4D before F5A, before F86. And he was in charge of Daegu squadron, whole thing, you know. So I know about this. I was brought up in the air base,
Everybody's,
K2,
okay, yeah.
U.S. Air Base and Korean Air Base. They're together. So
Yeah.
I know all about it.
That's where our bugler was. K2 was, and for security.
So Dennis and I are members of the VFW, and we're on the honor guard, so we do funerals for veterans. And we have an old gentleman in town that blew the taps for us for 42 years, and then he got too old. And so what we do is we recruit a young man or girl from high school,
Mm-hmm.
and they blow the bugle for us for 3 or 4 years, and then we give them a scholarship to go to college. And
But you got back there.
Yeah.
And
Good.
one of our buglers, he enjoyed being around us veterans so much, he joined the Army when he got out of high school. And first place they sent him to was South Korea, and he's a computer guy that
Security, military security.
does the directs missiles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's made a career out of the Army now. He stayed in. And real nice young man. But
By the way, this gentleman is the friend of Dennis McGary, Jack Martin. And Korea brought these two gentlemen together, one from Wisconsin, one from Wyoming, and Jack is ending up in Wyoming, the Cody, beautiful city. This year is the 70th anniversary of the Korean War broke out, 2020. What would you say to Korean people about your service and the relationship between U.S. and Korea?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't, not that much to say. I just think we still need to be working together.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't know what's going to happen with China, but it's not going to be good if we let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now North Korea may be just a puppet of China.
Okay. Are you proud to be a Korea defense veteran?
Oh yes, I am.
Uh-huh. Do you want to go back to Korea to see what's happened?
Well, I would enjoy a trip back. Yes.
Okay. Now the Korean government, MPVA, Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs, running their revisit program, used to be focusing on the Korean War veteran, but they are old, so that many of them cannot make it.
Yeah,
so
right
now
now.
they are trying to invite the Korea defense veterans back. And I'll put two of your names together so that you can go back to Korea together. How about that?
that would be wonderful.
It'd be really interesting.
Maybe this time you can take your wife with you.
It would be. I talked to her about it the other night, and she kind of looked at me like, and I thought, well, hopefully stuff is settled. The virus has gone down, and all that stuff is, and it would be. I would really like to see the changes.
In terms of public health policy on the pandemic, Korea is much better than United States right now.
I think you are. Yes.
Yeah, except Wyoming, because it's very sparsely populated.
Yep.
And it's so clean so that you don't have much problem. But if you go to New York City, Florida, Texas, you are in the hell.
Tell it. They were dirty before the pandemic.
Yep. All right, Dennis, it's been a very enjoyable moments to have a conversation with you, and how you end up as a Korean defense veteran. And you talk about a lot on Korea, the transformation that Korean people made, and also the friendship you made with Jack Martin. And I'm going to interview him soon, pretty soon in Yellowstone. So I want to thank you for your honorable service, and please remain as a best friend to the Korean people.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.